Welcome to the Faith Lutheran Church Wednesday evening Lenten service for March 4th, 2015. Tonight, Pastor Tim Barkett continues our Lenten series, The Parables of Lent, with a message entitled, Receive Mercy, based on the parable of the Good Samaritan from Luke chapter 10, verse 25 to 37. Let's listen in.
So we are continuing on this series about the parables of Jesus, talking about how these parables pertain to us as we prepare in this Lenten time. We prepare for Holy Week, we prepare for Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, and then of course Easter, the celebration of the resurrection. To start off with this evening, as I read these parables, you sometimes think, well, Jesus says these stories, he tells all these, and they're really kind of very far-fetched. Not actually so much. 2010, April 18th, we're coming up on that date even as we speak almost. Hugo Alfred Tail Yax, a immigrant from El Salvador, was in New York City, actually in the Bronx, in the borough of the Bronx. And in that borough one night he saw a woman being attacked by a man with a knife. And he runs over and he helps her. Well, in the midst of helping her, he actually gets stabbed himself. And he falls to the ground, Hugo does. And when he falls to the ground, the bad guy runs one way. The woman that he saved runs the other way. And he's left, and there's a picture of him on the street. You see, there was a camera above the street right there that recorded the whole incident. And it watched as over the next 15 minutes, no less than 18 people walked past Hugo. 18. One of them even stopped and took a picture with their cell phone camera and kept going. The closest anyone came to actually helping Hugo was somebody leaned down and kind of pushed him over when they saw all the blood because he was bleeding badly from the stabbing wound. They got up and walked away. 15 minutes later, the firemen show up, but by that time, it's too late. Hugo has died for lack of help. So the story, as we've just read it, of the Good Samaritan, not quite so far-fetched as we might think, although Hugo's version of it not nearly as successful as Jesus' version. And so we go back to this text because it's an important text for us as Christians as we consider this Lenten season, as we consider our theme tonight, which is actually mercy. As we consider mercy, we consider this text. Which of these three... Which of the three that came by as we studied it proved to be a neighbor? Jesus asked to the one who fell among the robbers. He said, the one who showed him mercy. Yes, good answer, right? Good answer. And Jesus said to him, you go and do likewise. And when I read those words in that text, I seem to hear Jesus echoing through the centuries, you go and be people of mercy as well. Mercy. So what is it? We all kind of have an idea of what mercy is. Mercy and grace tend to get kind of bottled together oftentimes, don't they? I mean, they're kind of two halves of the same coin. And if grace is getting what you don't deserve, right, then mercy is not getting what you do deserve. Sort of the opposite of it. Mercy, not getting what you do deserve. Mercy, first cute picture of the night, mercy is love in action. Right, it's this love, and it tends to be love that's kind of undeserved, doesn't it? That's really what mercy tends to be, kind of this greater form of love. Maybe for people that are very different from you or very unworthy of that mercy. I heard a story of a housewife, she was having a hard day. I don't know if housewives ever have a hard day, right? No, never. And I mean, just a hard day. The kids just aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Nothing's going right. The guy that was supposed to fix the sink in the bathroom, he was like 2 hours late. And sure enough, as she's going through all this, trying to fix dinner, and the phone rings. Right? Hey, this is Mom. Mom, you should hear the day I've been having. The kids are out of control. The plumber hasn't shown up yet. My husband, he hasn't called all day long. I have no idea where he is. And she just kind of lets all this stuff out on her mom. And the mom was just like, well, Here, hang on. I'm going to come over. I will help you. We're going to get this straightened out. We'll get the laundry done. We'll make sure the plumber's taken care of. And I'm going to call George. I'm going to call George on my way to your house and just let him know what a hard day you've been having. And we'll get him home a little early. And there's this kind of awkward pause. And she says to the mom, "Who's George?" "So that's your husband, right?" "Oh, no, my husband is Charlie." "This isn't my mom, is it?" "No." Another long pause. "Well, you're still coming over, right?" "Yeah." Mercy. Yeah. Mercy. I don't know actually if she came over or not. I kind of hope she did. It would make a good ending to the story. But mercy, just like love, is something you do. Mercy is really an action word. Just like love is an action word. It's not, quite frankly, an emotion. I mean, you can have loving feelings, but love is an action, just like mercy is an action. And love, as we do the acts of love, as we do the acts of mercy, it promotes all these feelings and emotions that come behind it. So love is really more of a verb than anything else. Love is kind of this thing that you put into everything else, like the great ingredient in a soup, right? The secret ingredient that you have for whatever your chili recipe is, or whatever, it's that thing you put in there that makes it just a little bit better. It's the seasoning to it, the flavoring to it. So tonight we're going to talk about 3 attitudes as we kind of get rolling here that we have towards others, that we often have, that we see in this parable of the Good Samaritan. And the Good Samaritan is a great story that really shows a lot of human nature. I mean, if we can compare it at all to the story of Hugo, it shows us a lot about human nature. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, we're not going to argue about the wisdom of that. If you've studied this story at all, you know that probably wasn't a very wise maneuver on his part to be doing that by himself. But he was. When he was attacked by robbers, because that's what they did on that road very often. And they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. And a priest, this guy should stop, right? He's a man of the cloth. He should stop and help out. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. Doesn't even want to get close to him. Doesn't want to find it out. Now, we could defend him and say, well, he was ready for his work at the temple, and if he gets too close to this guy, it's going to make him ritually unclean for at least 48 hours, and he's not going to be able to do his job and all these things. I mean, we can make lots of excuses for him, but at the end of the day, he doesn't do anything to help the man on the road. And I think a lot of times we do that with the people that are hurting in our lives too. We keep our distance. We keep our distance from the pain, right? Because if I get too close, what's going to happen? It's going to cost me something. It's going to cost me time, money, energy, emotional energy, right? And so we kind of keep people at arm's length. We keep them off of us. We stay away. We kind of do the avoidance thing, right? If I don't see it, if I don't hear it, if I don't say it, then it really isn't real, right? They're really not hurting that bad. And so we keep people at arm's distance. Never get too close, right? Don't just, because if they get too close, they might know too much about me. I might know too much about them, and heaven help us if they actually ask for help. Now I'm going to have to engage. Please don't interrupt me while I'm ignoring you. Yeah, I know. But we get that way sometimes, don't we? We get that feeling. Because quite frankly, we're pretty darn busy. We are. We're busy. We've got busy schedules. We've got a lot to do. We've got a lot to take care of. You know, if you have kids or grandkids, I mean, you've got just a lot going on. Some of the busiest people I know are retired, right? I mean, it's amazing. We're busy people. But busyness tends to keep our relationships all superficial. Have you ever noticed that? Because we keep people at arm's length. Yeah, it's the bumper sticker right on the back of your car. Keep your distance. Stay back from me. The other thing that we tend to do is to be curious about things. We're curious about what's going on in other people's lives, but we want to stay uninvolved directly. We're curious about it, but if I get involved, again, it's going to cost me something, right? It's the Curious George syndrome. It is. We like to observe. We like to know what's happening in other people's lives, but we don't want to engage in the mess that people's lives can become. Again, so too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him passes by on the other side. Notice he sees him, right? This is a very active, willing maneuver that he makes. Other side of the street, boom, walks by. I don't know if you remember these guys. It's pretty easy to become critical of things and people and situations that you're not involved in. It's easy to become critical of other people's decisions. It's easy to become critical of things that you don't know the details about. It almost too easy, right? I know none of us have ever done that, right? It's easy to become critical. It's easy to become a goosenecker, right? Especially in California. I've lived in a lot of states, but in California, we slow down the most. And I think it's because, you see that, there's going to be something on the side of the road, and like, I don't really want to see it, but I'm going to look, and when we slow down for it, the other side of the freeway slows down for it. We're classic gooseneckers. And I fear we do that in our relationships too. We become gooseneckers, observers of other people's trials and tribulations, and great critics of how they could have done it better, but don't really want to engage. No, this isn't gossip, it's the truth, right? No. But if you're talking about them when they're not there, it actually is gossip. And you have to remember this, the old Spanish proverb, it's a great proverb. Whoever gossips to you will also gossip about you. It's a classic truth. And so we have to be careful how we talk about people, whether we talk about people or not, especially if it may be true, but we certainly have not, the old proverb, not walked a mile in their shoes. And so we get aware, but we get apathetic. We're kind of, critiques. And then there's this one. Treat other people the way I want to be treated. Treat other people the way I would want to be treated. Again, from Luke. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. Right, it's the golden rule. We actually had a chunk of the golden rule from Paul in our Romans reading tonight. It's this do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. It's growth in your relationship, and it's a lifestyle of this seasoning of love and mercy through all that you do. It's a type of love we experience first in Christ, as He knows all of these places where we fall short, and yet still goes to the cross. Still goes to the cross for you. And on that cross He says, I know where you failed. I know the relationships. I know the time you've critiqued people you had no right to critique. I know when you've gossiped about people unfairly. I know when you've walked to the other side of the street. But guess what? You're forgiven. You are forgiven, and you are free. You are free to love. You are free to serve. You are free to be people of mercy. That's what He's doing on the cross, is He's freeing us to live as His people. And in that freedom, therefore, we actually can love. We can love and have mercy the way He would call us as His people to love and have mercy. So I want to give us 4 quick examples from the Samaritan of this love and mercy tonight. And one thing I want us to think about it as we think about the story of the Samaritan, as we think about mercy, as we think about heading in towards Lent, is this: start seeing the needs of others. Actually seeing the needs of others, and not just kind of being a passive observer. Again, Luke 10. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw, don't miss that. It's 3 quick words, and you could read over it really fast, right? We read over it fast just a little bit ago. But when he saw, and it changes everything, because he doesn't see and just go by, but he sees and engages. He takes pity, has mercy on him. Because this mercy, these acts of mercy begin with seeing. Begin with seeing the problem. Just like Christ sees our problem and forgives us of our sin, He calls us to see the pain, see the suffering around us, expand our vision. So often I think we go around with our blinders on. And honestly, I don't think we mean to. I really don't. But we're very busy, aren't we? We're very busy. And that busyness creates those blinders oftentimes. We need to be more observant. Let me encourage you, be more observant of what's going on in the relationships and the lives of people around you. Not for the sake of critique, but for the sake of love, for the sake of mercy, and sensitive to those needs around you. Whenever I talk about this, it reminds me of an old story of a flight. It was a flight coming across country. And as they get going, the flight's taking, it's those moments and everybody's still in the seats, and then finally, ding, the seatbelt light goes off and everybody can kind of stand up and stretch. And the attendant, after a few minutes, gets on the little PA and starts to talk to the people on board the flight. And she says, well, welcome aboard. We do have a problem this evening. It's not a big problem, don't worry, but it's a small problem. The ground crew only packed about 40 dinners for the entire flight. There are 110 of us on this flight. So anyone who would like to give up their meal, the airlines has offered to buy them free drinks for the duration of the flight. So after about an hour, the attendant gets back on the PA and says, well, thank you to everyone who offered. We still actually have 29 meals left. We'd be happy to give some of those away. Yeah. Mercy. Although sometimes our mercy is very selfish, isn't it? It is. Sometimes our mercy is very, very selfish. Right? Because we're busy. I think our busyness and the way we tend to live in that busy state, that hurried state all the time, sometimes really gets the best of us. It really does. Because hurry is the death of mercy. Hurry is the death of mercy. Have you ever, don't watch this movie. It's an old, bad movie, but it's the only one I could find where everybody's kind of in the car for a vacation, right? But, when you go on vacation, you could do it like my dad did. When we went on vacation, no matter how far we were going, it could have been 5 hours or 15 hours. You get in the car and you drive. Right? And the only time you stop is for fuel or if somebody's dying of hunger, right? That kind of thing. And even then, when they're dying of hunger, you get it and you put it in the car, you eat it in the car as you continue, right? And you don't stop until you get there, ever. It's the most expedient way of getting there, but you really don't enjoy the journey very much. Let me encourage you in your relationships as you walk through life, kind of like a vacation, the slower you go, the more you're going to see. The slower you go, the more you're going to see. You're going to be able to stop at the mystery spot and look at whatever that is. You're going to be able to stop at the redwood forest and touch a tree. And you may not get there quite as fast, but you're going to see more. And let me encourage you in your relationships, in your life, slow down just a little bit. Slow down enough for the stories, for the relationships. Paul tells us this in 1 Corinthians, look out for the good of others, right? That's kind of the antithesis of selfishness, isn't it? Look out for the good of others. It's this having your spiritual radar up. Spiritual radar for the hurt of other people. Now, there's definitely a spiritual gift for that. People have the gift of compassion and all that, which is fantastic. But I think God calls us all to have our spiritual radars up just a little bit. For the needs and the issues that people are having. Because too often we have spiritual ADD. We really do, right? We're so busy, we're so focused, and we so want to get to the next thing that's like, boom, our head's in the sand, and we miss so much of the people around us. It's kind of like when you're at the dentist. I don't know if you've had this experience. When you're at the dentist, right, he puts like 17 tools in your mouth, and the thing's like sucking your spit away, right? And it's got all that stuff going on. And what does he do? He starts asking you questions, right? And you're like, well, and he knows exactly what you're saying. Although, when he's got all that stuff in there, it's like, and he's working it. I just kind of wish he would focus. I really do. Just focus, because my gums really don't like to bleed that much. It's just focus, man. I think we get spiritual ADD. And we lose focus because we get so focused on so many other things. None of you ever do this when you drive, do you? No. None of you drive and text. That would be illegal. Yeah. But we get so busy, and it's easy to get distracted by our lives. It's easy to get task focused. There's nothing wrong with tasks, but it's easy to get focused on that stuff and miss opportunities for relationships. How would you rank yourself on your you don't have to do that out loud. Please don't, actually. Please don't. But how would you rate yourself on your task focusedness versus relational focus? Because I want you to, this Lent, maybe be conscious of the needs around you, just a little more, wherever you kind of rate yourself on that scale. How would you rate the other people in your life on that? Maybe you can take a cue from some of them. Maybe you've got to kind of ignore the way some of them treat other people, right? But let me encourage you, make a list of people that are the closest to you, and write down what their struggle is. Because I can guarantee you, every person in your life that's close to you has a struggle of one sort or another. Do you know what they are? Could you make a list? I mean, the top 5 people in your life. Do you know what their main struggle is? And then sympathize. Have a little sympathy with the pain you see in their lives. Right? This is the Samaritan, right? He sympathizes with this guy that he sees there on the road, right? I sympathize with everything except suffering. So often we live like that. We sympathize with everything, but I mean, we can sympathize with joy, we can sympathize with celebrations, but when it comes to suffering, boom. Yeah, I got enough of that of my own. So we don't sympathize with it very well. Luke 10, when he saw him, his heart was filled with pity. His heart was filled with mercy. His heart was filled with love. His heart was filled so that he had to act towards this guy. I want your hearts to be filled with those people that God's put through your life. So it just compels you, because of his love, because of his grace first, for you to act in acts of love and acts of mercy, being sensitive, being sympathetic. Galatians, bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. The law is what? Love God and love each other and serve. So rate yourself. How would you rate yourself on the sympathy scale? How would you rate yourself on the sympathy scale? And then seize the moment. When the moments happen, seize them, because they go by pretty quick, don't they? Have you ever had one of those moments where you knew you could have helped somebody, and it just, maybe it was a brother or a nephew or a cousin or a son or a daughter, and you just kind of went through it because you had a lot to do, and you look back and you go, man, I missed an opportunity. I encourage you, don't miss those opportunities that God walks through your life. Again, from Luke. Kneeling beside him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with medicine and bandaged them. In the translation we read earlier, he puts oil and wine on them, right? Makes a salad on them. Yeah. But these are the things they used to heal in those days. And so he uses the things that he has to help heal the man. Because love is action. Mercy is action. It's this thing that we do because it has been done to us first. And it's not just, oh, I feel so bad for you. It's not just kind of that I feel bad, but it actually is a love that does something. It's a love that stoops down. It's a love that gets dirty with people. It's a love that sometimes knows that, if you've ever done this, get into a relationship with someone that's hurting, it generally is not a one-shot deal. It's generally something that oftentimes takes years of walking alongside someone as they heal, as they grow. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. See, he uses what he has. Love that. He uses what he has. God has given you everything you need to be people of love and mercy. Everything you need. And there's no better time than now to help other people. The second cute picture of the night. Yeah. To help other people, to help those that are maybe very different from you. Now is the time for mercy. Now is the time for love. Proverbs, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. What a powerful verse, isn't it? When you have the ability to help, don't withhold it. Do not say to your neighbor, come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you, when you already have it with you. Right? Because the world, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the world is full of wounded people. It's full of hurt. It's full of pain. It's full of people lying in the road. And I worry that too often we walk by. We don't intend to. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying we get so busy. We get so caught up in our lives. We get so caught up in our schedules. We get so caught up in all our stuff that we go by. And we miss opportunities. But you must be willing to be interrupted. You must be willing to be interrupted from your schedule. Does that bug any of you to get interrupted? I mean, for some of us, I know some of us are like super schedule driven. We get up in the morning, we write 10 things out, and it's like, boom, I'm going to do these 10 things, and if I don't get it done, I feel like I failed my day. Right? That's this guy. And so when I say be willing to be interrupted, it really hits home. Because God calls us as his people to be willing to be interrupted. Luke 10, now by chance a priest was going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. He was not willing to be interrupted because he had a big day ahead of him, right? His planner was probably full, but I bet you the Samaritan's planner was pretty full that day too, or he wouldn't have been on that road in the first place. But he was willing to be interrupted. So willing to be interrupted, and then willing to step out of your comfort zone. It was not comfortable for the Samaritan to help the Israelite on the road. This was not a comfortable thing. Matthew 7, so whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. The golden rule right there, Matthew 7. The trouble is it's fear that makes us not move into situations, that keeps our feet still. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of what it might cost us. It's fear of how much time, energy, relational, emotional stuff it might cost us. When John writes to his church, he says this, there is no fear in love, because perfect love casts out fear. And so God calls us to this perfect love, this love of grace, this love, this mercy that we've received first. He calls us to that level of love. So again, rate yourself. Where are you with that? How do you do with interruptions? And what might you be able to do to change that? What might you be able to do to be a little more like the example of the Samaritan? And then spend whatever it takes. And I actually mean that. Spend whatever it takes to help the people that God walks through your life that have needs. Right? Because there's usually a cost to mercy. Right? Mercy has a price tag. If nothing else, it's going to cost you time. It just is. Mercy has a price tag. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you have. Right? 2 denarii, 2 days' wages, give or take. Right? This was a lot of money that he gives for this guy. And it was described to me one time like this. This Samaritan taking this Israelite to this village, to this inn, was a lot like if in 1875... right? Dodge City, there's downtown Dodge City. There's actually a picture from 1875. 1875, downtown Dodge City. If a Plains Indian had found a cowboy half scalped on the ground, picked him up, put him on his pinto, and rode him into Dodge City down to the inn and put him up in the inn, it would have been much like that for this. This is the same kind of comparison. He'd be lucky to get out of that town alive, let alone do this for this cowboy. Right? Great risk the Samaritan puts himself at. And what he gained from it? Nothing. Nothing. He gains nothing. In fact, he loses all sorts of financial and probably time and everything else. He loses from it. So why should we be merciful? That doesn't seem like a great example, does it? Why should we be merciful? I mean, if we're going to lose all these things, why should we be merciful? And the answer is actually very simple. Because God has been extravagantly merciful to you first. And there's no better season to remember that than Lent. God has been extravagantly merciful to you in his life, in his death, in his resurrection. As he hangs on that cross and says, I forgive you. I love you. You are mine. You are free. You are free to be people of love and mercy. The extravagance of that grace, the extravagance of that mercy drives us to live like the Samaritan. You know, oftentimes when we hear these parables, at least I do, I don't know if you do this, but we try and figure out who's who in the parables, right? Well, now who is the Levite and who's the guy on the road, or any of the in the parables that will do that? Well, who are the workers in the vineyard? Well, in this story, traditionally throughout, as far back as you can go in the church, you are the guy on the road. That's the way the church has always interpreted this. You are the one left dead in the road by your sin, by your trespass, by your lack of mercy, by the way that you keep people at arm's distance sometimes. It's you that is on the road, and Jesus is the Samaritan. Jesus is the Samaritan who stops and loves and gives up everything to a world that hates him, that crucifies him. And yet he does it. And he does it for you. And he would do it again if he had to for you. But he doesn't, because one time was enough. And so Jesus does that for you. and he forgives you. Ephesians, God being rich in mercy. This is the nature of that mercy. Because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive. Alive in Christ. Together with Christ. By grace, you have been saved. For we are his workmanship. And then kind of the turn here. We are his workmanship. And we are created for a reason. We're created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God has prepared in advance for you to do. You're redeemed for a reason. You're redeemed with a plan. You're redeemed with a purpose. And as you live out these lives of mercy, this Lenten life of mercy, it's actually an act of worship. It's literally an act of worship as you are merciful to the people around you, acting justly, loving mercy, walking humbly with your God. It honors him. It's an act of worship to him. And quite frankly, it makes you and other people happy when you live like that. When you make those choices, when you kind of compromise your schedule, you compromise your time, it will actually, I almost guaranteed, make you a happier person when you live like that. It's a great promise from the scriptures, and guys, quite frankly, it makes you more attractive when you're merciful, right? This is in the text. It really is. Proverbs, what is desired in a man is then the Hebrew word chesed. Fantastic Hebrew word, total loaded Hebrew word. It means love, mercy, and forgiveness, all kinds of great stuff, but it can be translated mercy. So what is desired in a man is mercy. So you understand what this means? If you're merciful, you too can be attractive. You too can, it makes you a movie star to be merciful. It makes you fantastic. It creates this beautiful attractiveness about you. There's hope for us. You just start being merciful. It's a great gift. It's a great promise of God. It's a great blessing of his. And God blesses acts of mercy. In fact, over and over he says, I will bless you. I will bless you for your mercy to other people. I encourage you tonight, before you go to bed, read Isaiah 58 and hear the way he promises to bless mercy, the way he promises to bless a life of love. And it's not just thinking about it, it's not just talking about it, because we do a good job talking about it, right? I've talked for a long time about it tonight. We do a good job of that, but it's living that out moment by moment, day to day. Right? And actually doing it. So as we consider doing it, I always want to give people some action points, some things, ways to live this out. And so let's have just a couple of those tonight, because Galatians tells us, so then as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone. That's pretty all-encompassing, isn't it? Let's do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Boom. You guys, together and towards each other. Right? It's a great command. And it can be any kind of thing here. These are just 5 of my, right off the top of my head. Maybe tonight you need to go home and get somebody on the phone and forgive them, even though they don't deserve it. Even though, you know what, you deserve to hold that grudge for the next 20 years because of what they did. Maybe you need to be merciful and get on the phone and go, you know what, I forgive you. I want to figure out how we can be in relationship again. Or maybe it's something as simple as donating blood because you're scared of it and you don't like it, but it's a great way to help your community. Or maybe it's something as simple as volunteering at church for something that kind of makes you uncomfortable, and yet you kind of know God has gifted you in that way. Or maybe it's at your kid's school, being there, or your grandkid's school, and helping out with the teacher who you know needs help. Or maybe you know somebody who has a financial need, and it's just being extravagantly generous with them, and maybe not even letting them know. Or maybe befriending someone that you know that has very few friends, and maybe they're a little bit unlovable sometimes. It's finding these acts of mercy that God calls us to as his people in response to his love to us first. Again, from Luke, be merciful, even as your Father in heaven is merciful. That's the life he calls us to as his followers. So as we consider Lent, as we consider the promises of Lent, let me encourage you, be merciful. Keep your eyes open. See the needs around you. Love and serve, because you have been extravagantly loved and served first. In the name of Jesus, amen.
For more information on Faith Lutheran Church of Moore Park, California, and for more podcast episodes like this one, Visit us on the web at www.faithmorepark.com.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.